A Study of Matter by C.O. Southard, M.D. We are frequently asked how we regard matter and just what we believe it is. This question is worth our careful consideration because an understanding of the subject vouchsafes to us the assurance of the reality of certain phenomena that have been denied by those who hold to the old views of material things. Nowadays, science is seeing with new eyes, and new ideas have been coming quickly, ideas that some find it hard to understand, but which are full of meaning for us. This is because true scientists are now satisfied with nothing less than the absolute truth and are bending every effort to reaching this goal. The old definitions of matter have gone by the board. They never did really fill the requirements, and now they have ceased to have any significance whatever. We should forget them entirely, but I believe that the time has arrived when we can formulate a definition based on a review of modern scientific investigations as well as our own metaphysical understanding that will fill our need, which will really define and which will enable us to use the words matter and material with true understanding. This study and this definition will also give us a clearer idea of our own relation to the universe. When I was a student, we learned that everything which exists is composed of elements, of which there were some 70 known at that time. Each element is divided into atoms, which are defined as the smallest part of an element that can take part in a chemical change. These atoms are entirely invisible, even through the most powerful microscope. This theory has not been abandoned, it has been developed and expanded. There are now known 92 elements. The theoretical list worked out over 50 years ago have been filled in. The last one was discovered a short time since, and there are some reasons for believing that no more will be found. The atom is still recognized as the basis of ordinary chemical activity. It is the unit of chemical change, just as the molecule built up of atoms is the unit of mass formation. But many years ago, a few of us asked where the atom comes from. The answer was unknown when I was a student, and most scientists dogmatically asserted that the atom was the basis of all matter, although this idea did not explain certain phenomena with which we were then acquainted. Now scientists have boldly gone into the unknown and have attacked the structure of the atom itself. The result is that a new world of knowledge is opening before us, one that is most interesting. Briefly, we have returned to the idea of a universal substance interpenetrating everything, which is known as the ether. This substance is formless and structureless. It is absolutely continuous and fills all space. It is present everywhere, even in what we call emptiness. It thus connects everything. There is no proof that it moves, but it transmits energy in the form of waves. It is perfect in all its properties and is devoid of friction. Under the influence of some force which scientists have not yet defined, a tiny bit of ether apparently splits into two bodies. One of these is positive electricity and is known as the proton. The other is negative electricity and is called the electron. There is considerable difference between these particles. The electron seems to be very small and have almost no weight, while the proton is much larger and is quite heavy in comparison. These particles made from ether are not separated from it in any way, but they are still ether in a specialized form. It is difficult for many people to grasp this idea of no separation, and there is nothing to which we can liken it. We must simply accept it as a fact until we do understand it. This means, of course, the unity of all things through which the parent substance. From these particles the atoms are built. The simplest, that of hydrogen, consists of one electron revolving with terrific speed around a proton. The only structural difference between the different kinds of atoms is the number of electrons of which they are made up, and possibly in their arrangement. The atomic weights seem to depend entirely on the number of protons present, and we must remember that each electron requires a proton. From the elements thus formed are built the molecules of the different solids, liquids, and gases with which we are acquainted. This shows how closely all things, tangible and intangible, are related. In Hebrews, we read, "By faith we understand that the worlds have been framed by the word of God, so that what is seen hath not been made out of things which appear." The metaphysics of this is perfect. It is even in accord with our old chemistry, for the molecules and atoms cannot be seen by any means. Today we see how well the writer of this epistle had grasped the truth of creation, for science now shows that all things are made out of the one invisible substance. The formed is created from the formless, and the electrons are still ether, not separated from it. So everything is itself ether that has been brought into the formed condition. Now there are two things about these particles that are a puzzle even to many scientists. In some tests they behave like solid particles, while in others they seem like waves. There is a difference of opinion as to which they are. I believe that a very little thought would suggest that they are transition forms, the first step from the formless to the formed, and so partake of some of the characteristics of each. They probably begin as waves and change to particles. The other point at issue is what causes the formation of these electrons from the ether while they still remain one with it. No scientist has ever yet suggested an explanation, so we must use some metaphysical reasoning to clear this up. We know that there is one intelligence over and in everything, and that it made all things by means of creative energy. It is evident that this formation of the electrons from ether is carried out by this power under the influence of the one intelligence as the first step in bringing the formed out of the structureless. We thus see how the process of differentiation takes place, the electrons being grouped into atoms, the atoms into molecules, and the molecules into masses, giving us from pure structureless ether or substance a tree, a rock, or a man, all under the action of creative energy. The force which causes this would be the logos in action. Centuries ago, metaphysicians believed that matter is made from some basic thing which we have come to know simply as substance. If we use the terms ether and substance interchangeably, which we can do now, we see that science has caught up and proved our claims. This substance, or ether, is present everywhere, although we cannot appreciate it by our senses. There can be no lack of it, no matter what the appearance seems to be. We are living in it all the time, and everything that we know is substance molded by the creative power into what we call matter. The tree growing before my house is substance, condensed and formed into its present shape by the creative energy under the direction of life. Life is intelligence, and if the electrons obey this force, it's because they also have intelligence. Without intelligence, they would be inert and could not follow orders. Now bring this nearer home. Your body is formed in the same way as the tree. It is substance, or ether, differentiated into flesh, bone, and all that it contains by the life within. The food you eat is substance that has undergone the same treatment. The air you breathe is a form of substance, and so is the beautiful rose that I see on the table. And not one of these things is separated from the ether which gives rise to them. Bearing in mind that we are accustomed to calling all these things material, and remembering what we have learned about ether and how it develops into these objects, I think we can now formulate a definition of matter that will satisfy us at least, and which will help us in our thinking. It is this: matter is the form which substance takes for our use and enjoyment under the power of creative energy directed by omnipresent intelligence. We thus get away from the old definitions which did not define, and we drop all thought of matter as being something dead. We see that it is an expression of intelligence itself, that it is intelligence, although it seems to be inert. This is because it is not self-conscious, as is life. Matter, then, is real. It is as real as that from which it is made, for it is merely the latter changed into form. It is not separated in any way, but it is not permanent. It can return at any time to its elements or even to substance itself. Does it ever so change? Yes, the process of the formation of atoms from ether and the breaking up of the atom is probably going on all the time. Nothing is ever really destroyed because substance cannot be destroyed, but change, continual change, is the rule throughout the universe. Nothing is absolutely permanent but ether. This is changing from the formless to the formed and back again continually, not by chance, but in a regular, orderly manner, according to definite laws under the direction of intelligence. We say that it is permanent because in all these changes, it is still ether. Your body is substance, still part of the one substance. Consequently, you are, even in the flesh, an integral part of the one whole. Science and metaphysics are in agreement here. Scientists are working closer and closer to the idea of the unity of everything all the time. Someday, it will be recognized by everybody. Now, this understanding of matter opens up an interesting possibility. This is the transmutation of substance. The making of gold from base metals was the dream of the alchemists during the Middle Ages. They did not succeed, but they made many valuable discoveries. The early scientific knowledge was so strongly against the idea that it was given up. Now we see that it is possible after all. Since the only difference between the elements is in the number of electrons in the atom, it should be possible to change one element to another by adding or removing these particles. We read of certain attempts at smashing the atom. This is being done with the idea that if the bonds holding it together can be broken, the way will be found to unite the electrons and protons as one desires. But to us, this brings an understanding of certain things that happened 2,000 years ago. The first miracle of Jesus's was the changing of water to wine at a wedding. Scientists have denied any possibility of this being done, but now they give us proof that it is not at all impossible. Water and wine are merely two different forms of ether or substance. It is quite possible that either might be changed into the other. The same power that created both wine and water from the same thing can change water into wine. This should be self-evident. Jesus was well acquainted with the creative energy, and he knew how to call it into action for any specific purpose. Consequently, he did the seemingly impossible. At another time, he fed a multitude, beginning with just a few loaves and fishes. These were increased at his will, and all had plenty to eat. To one who would call the divine energy to his aid, this was simple. Bread and fish are differentiated substance. Substance is everywhere present. Under the influence of the creative power of the formless became the formed, and the hungry were fed. With our present knowledge of matter, we see that such things are entirely possible and are not to be denied offhand. The claim that man will someday produce from the ether around him everything he needs is not far-fetched. Everything is substance, and man is intelligence, working through a body also made from substance. The creative power is present and active at all times. Otherwise, we should be hard put to it for our ordinary supply. When we have mastered the use of this energy, and when our faith is in its action becomes strong, we shall ourselves create what we desire. There can be no doubt about this. Did he not promise, "He that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also"? We are using every day in the finished form, in the form of what we term matter. We use it as food, we clothe ourselves with it, we build our houses from it, but it is also all one substance that has taken different forms for our benefit. We must learn to handle substance itself. Then we shall have everything we desire without waiting. This is not to be done by any physical process, however, but by the use of mind power. Our thoughts are really molding substance all the time, but we hesitate to form it directly. Now that we are sure of what we are using, and that this can be done, let us give more attention to cultivating the power that God gave us. When we someday hear, as we shall, that somebody has actually demonstrated something direct from formless substance, we must not pooh-pooh the idea, for it is possible, and it will be done in time. Instead of denying it, let us give thanks that at least one person is proving that the words of the Master are true, and is setting the example for the rest of us. Since substance, or ether, is spirit, for that is all there is, we can see that what we call matter has come out of spirit and is still one with it. Now we can understand that everything exists first in the spirit form and then develops into the material, the difference being one of condensation or concentration. The reversal of the process is just as possible, so the spiritualizing of the body now appears as perfectly reasonable to us as it was to Paul when he wrote, "This mortal must put on immortality." Besides, since ether interpenetrates everything, there is probably an ether or spirit body within the material shape. If the material body was destroyed, the spirit body would remain, and the creative intelligence can build a whole new vehicle for it to use. The Master so controlled his body after the resurrection that he appeared in the flesh to his disciples and vanished into the invisible from before them. We have no grounds for disbelieving this. Science is strengthening our faith. Let us remember that substance is one. It is formless and structureless, but under the force of intelligence, it assumes the form desired. The result is what we call matter. Matter is real, filled with intelligence, and obedient to our wills. It is not permanent, but is changing at all times, and we can influence these changes. Matter is good. Did not God see his creations were good? We must see it in the same light, and raise it by our thoughts to a higher plane. I am intelligence. By the power of my thoughts, I mold divine substance into the form I desire. This concludes this reading of A Study of Matter by C.O. Southard, M.D. If you have a book you would like me to record here on this channel, please mention it in the comments. If you received value from this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more audiobook videos. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. I'm sending you oceans of love and peace, and I'm wishing you success in all your life missions and purposes. See you soon.